decision ได้แล้วแล้วก็ขอแล้วนะพูด
บัตรชมพูอ่ะ
เขาบอกว่าเขามากับเขาเป็น
บัตรชมพู
เป็นงานรู้ procedure เป็นไปแล้ว
Distinguished delegates, agenda item 2 of the 9th session of the Committee on Disaster Risk Reduction will commence shortly. May I kindly request everyone to take their seats. We will begin in 2 minutes.
Thank you.
I don't have anything, but I'll say again. Distinguished delegates, agenda item 2 of the 9th session of the Committee on Disaster Risk Reduction will commence now. Please kindly take your seats and I'll pass over to our Secretariat. Thank you.
Excellency, distinguished delegate, let's now resume with the proceeding of the committee. We shall now take up the agenda item 2 on reviewing of the expanding risk landscape in Asia and the Pacific, including the relation in intensifying heat. Excellency, distinguished delegate, the document pertaining to this agenda item is ESCAP CDR 9/2 on reviewing of the expanding risk landscape in Asia and the Pacific, including the relation to intensifying heat. The committee's consider of this agenda item will begin with the statement by Ms. Tiziana Bonaparte, Director, Information and Communication Technology and Disaster Risk Division on expanding risk landscape in Asia and the Pacific, including the relation in intensifying heat. Ms.
Okay,
I
thank
hand
you.
over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, a very good afternoon to everyone. This agenda item addresses how a rapidly evolving risk landscape is reshaping resilience priorities in Asia and the Pacific. So drawing on the disaster report 2025 that we launched this morning, the Secretariat's note under this agenda item underscores that climate change is intensifying multiple hazards. Extreme heat is emerging as a defining cross-sector stressor, affecting health, labor, energy, food systems, and cities. And it requires that risk information translate into timely protective action. The document highlights key findings on costs and exposure. Projected disaster losses for the region increase from $418 billion in the current scenario to a possible $498 billion under the worst case climate scenario by 2100. This reinforces the value of investing in resilience measures that avoid losses, unlock productivity, and generate social and environmental co-benefits. Our projections also indicate sharp increases in days above critical heat thresholds across several subregions, with South and Southwest Asia and parts of Southeast Asia facing prolonged high-risk seasons, while Northern and Eastern Australia are also trending towards chronic heat exposure. The Secretariat note further emphasizes differentiated impacts and cooperation needs. Urban areas face rising heat stress and infrastructure strain. Rural areas face climate-sensitive livelihoods and water stresses. Coastal zones contend with surges, surges interacting with extreme heat on similar timescales. In all cases, vulnerable groups such as women, children, older persons, outdoor workers, and low-income households bear the heaviest burden. And these dynamics point to the need to strengthen regional and sub-regional cooperation, expanding access to geospatial data, to digital innovation, and scaling up both the regional data and the policy platforms so that countries are able to move from the more fragmented responses to more coherent, multi-country, multi-hazard adaptation and resilience building. And the guidance sought from the committee is threefold. One is an invitation to share national policy perspectives pertaining to the analyses and recommendations contained in the document in front of you. A second is an invitation to share perspectives on integrating heat risk reduction elements into the regional strategy for early warnings, which was recommended for further development by the Committee on Disaster Risk Reduction at its 8th session. And thirdly, to consider requesting the Secretariat to support members and associate members to strengthen capacity building through regional and sub-regional cooperation, in particular for the cross-sector integration and regional scaling up of the 5-point strategy set out in paragraph 65 of the document in front of you. A draft decision invites continued support for these efforts. So in sum, Chair, the region should progress from risk awareness to risk-informed action by integrating heat across multi-hazard systems, reinforcing regional platforms, and scaling capacity building to protect lives and to protect development gains. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Bonpace, for presenting the key statement for this session. Excellency, distinguished delegate, we shall now proceed with the country statement for agenda item 2. Before we proceed, allow me a few minutes to go through some important issues regarding the conducting of this meeting. I would like to invite the distinguished delegate wishes to make statement to submit their name and written statement to the conference room officer seated to my left. Submitted a written statement will ensure that your statement are accurately reflected and in accordance of the proceeding. I would like to urge all speakers to adhere to the time limit of 3 minutes to ensure that we can hear from all those participating. I will also would like to remind the delegates that in case of longer statement, you may provide the Secretariat with a full statement for sharing through the committee website. The Secretariat will also like to encourage its delegation to focus its intervention on each of the agenda items under discussion. In the view of the mandates and operational requirement of the committee, priority will be given first to the member state, associate member, and observer countries of the committee, if time allows. The floor then will be given to the intergovernmental and international organizations and other entities. Regarding the report of the committee, only decision discussed during the session will be captured and considered for adoption in the report of the committee on the final day of this committee session on the 28th November 2025. In this connection, I would like to draw your attention to the procedure for consideration of the draft decision. Please note that pertaining draft decision will be discussed and considered under the relevant agenda item based on an analysis provided by Secretariat in the pre-season document. In this regard, please note the following: the completion of the country statement that pertaining draft decision will be discussed and considered under item number 2 and 3. And all accounts of this proceeding will be drafted under the session as ended, be circulated to the participant so that they have the opportunity to ensure that their statement have been accurately reflected and be annexed to the report on this session. Distinguished delegate, in order to facilitate the conduct of the session, I now turn the matter of the statement in the exercise of right of reply during the committee. In line with the Rule 46 of the Rule Procedure and Practice of the parents' body of the Commission and the Economic and Social Council, I propose that in exercising their right of reply, delegations should be brief as possible, deliver their statement at the end of the meeting at which the right is requested, or at the end of the day. Whenever 2 meetings have been scheduled for the day to consider the same item, I further propose that the number of intervention and exercise of the rights of reply any delegation at given meeting should be limited to 2 per item, with the first intervention limited to 3 minutes, and the second, if any, to 2 minutes. Delegation wish to exercise the rights of reply are kindly requested to inform the Secretariat staff located at the right next to the podium. Is this clear to all delegation? I hear no objection. The committee will proceed accordingly. Let us now continue. I now open the floor for country statement. The first speaker is Bhutan.
Honorable Chair, Excellencies, and distinguished delegates, Bhutan commends the Secretariat for its review of the expanding risk landscape under Agenda 2, particularly for highlighting the emergence of heat as a growing hotspot in Asia-Pacific. Our national experience reflects this analysis. Data from National Center for Hydrology and Meteorology indicate that Bhutan has warmed by approximately 0.2 degrees Celsius per year since 2018. And projections suggest an additional increase of over 1 degree Celsius by 2040. Such rates of warming are unprecedented in our high mountain environment and have already begun to reshape ecosystems, agriculture, and urban settlements. In May 2024, Gelifo, a city in southern Bhutan, recorded 40 degrees Celsius, the highest temperature ever observed in Bhutan. Similarly, in July 2022, Punakha, which is a city in northern Bhutan, reached 38.5 degrees Celsius, well above its historical average for that month. These events illustrate that extreme heat is no longer a distant or theoretical threat. It is a reality directly affecting health, livelihoods, and the resilience of communities. According to ADB's climate risk profile, the number of days with maximum temperature greater than 35 degrees Celsius is projected to rise steeply under the higher emission scenarios, especially in southern Bhutan. Rapid glacial retreat compounds these risks. Bhutan has lost more than 1,000 gigatons of glacier ice since 2003, increasing vulnerability to water insecurity and glacial lake outburst floods. Together, these trends exemplify ESCAP's characterization of risks as compound and cascading, affecting multiple sectors including health, water, agriculture, and infrastructure. Bhutan recognizes the urgent need to transform risk awareness into action. We are committed to strengthening early warning and anticipatory action systems, integrating heat risk management into local planning, developing science-based policies, expanding access to geospatial and digital climate data, and enhancing cross-sector coordination. Our experience with anticipatory action under the Sustainable National Anticipatory Action through Preparedness Program in 2024, though not heat-specific, demonstrated the value of early triggers for preventive action. Reviving and expanding such capacities for heat risk management will be a priority. Bhutan fully supports ESCAP's 5-point strategy for heat risk reduction, and we seek regional support under each pillar as follows. Adaptation finance. Bhutan supports strengthening finance mechanisms for early action measures and seeks support to develop proposals for GCF, LDCF, and Adaptation Fund, as well as exploring regionally pooled funding mechanisms. Science-based policies. Bhutan supports the development of scientific and evidence-based thresholds for heat risk, seeks technical support for high-altitude heat thresholds, probabilistic forecasting, and data-driven early action triggers. Linking global strategies to local implementation. Bhutan supports integrating global early warning strategies into national and local planning and seeks assistance for implementing pilot urban cooling interventions, community awareness programs, and scaling the early warnings for all frameworks to urban centers such as Thimphu, Phuentsholing, and Samdrujokhar. Geospatial and digital innovation. Bhutan supports the use of high-resolution climate and health data and seeks support for developing an integrated heat health early warning system, linking meteorological, hydrological, and public health data sets. And cross-sector coordination. Bhutan supports strengthening governance and coordination for anticipatory actions and seeks support to build framework for multi-sectoral early action planning and peer learning with other LDCs and mountain countries confronting similar risks. Through these initiatives, Bhutan aims not only to respond to heat risks, but to anticipate them, embedding resilience into local governance, infrastructure, and community practices. By linking scientific insights, operational coordination, and community engagement, we hope to protect lives, livelihoods, and development gains. In closing, Bhutan reaffirms its commitment to work closely with ESCAP and fellow member states to turn analysis into action, ensuring our region is better prepared for intensifying heat extremes. Together, we can build a resilient, inclusive, and climate-ready Asia-Pacific. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bhutan. And now, give the floor to France and followed by Georgia.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. La France appuie résolument les initiatives portées par la CESAP en matière de réduction des risques de catastrophes au vu de la vulnérabilité particulière de la région Asie-Pacifique et du constat de l'amplification et de l'intensification de certains risques directement liés au changement climatique, notamment de la chaleur ou des inondations. Nous accueillons avec intérêt le rapport présenté au comité et partageons les préoccupations qui y sont exprimées, qui viennent rappeler la nécessité de travailler ensemble à la recherche de solutions innovantes et durables à même de réduire les conséquences de ces dérèglements. C'est dans cet esprit que la France, par le biais de l'Agence française de développement, mène plusieurs projets de gestion des risques de catastrophes et de résilience climatique dans la région Asie du Sud-Est, afin d'apporter son soutien aux efforts d'adaptation des États directement confrontés à cette nouvelle réalité. Par exemple, l'AFD appuie les efforts du ministère de l'Intérieur et des collectivités locales des Philippines dans le déploiement du processus de décentralisation de la compétence gestion et de la prévention des risques de catastrophes et d'adaptation vers les collectivités locales. Ces efforts visent à améliorer la résilience des collectivités locales et à raccourcir le temps nécessaire au retour à la normale. Au Vietnam, l'AFD finance un projet de prévention des inondations dans la ville de Dien Bien Phu qui vise à mener des travaux hydrauliques tels que le renforcement des berges ou le dragage de la rivière, tout en étudiant la possibilité de mener une ingénierie écologique plus respectueuse de l'environnement et prenant en compte la fonction paysagère des travaux. En Thaïlande, aux côtés de la Banque asiatique de développement, de la Banque mondiale et du Fonds de l'OPEP, l'AFD et l'Union européenne cofinancent pour un montant de 10 millions d'euros un vaste programme de gestion intégrée des inondations dans le bassin du Chao Phraya, avec un focus particulier sur le renforcement de la capacité technique de la Thaïlande à anticiper, prévenir et gérer les catastrophes hydrométéorologiques. Cela passe par la modernisation du réseau de mesures, le développement d'un système intégré de prévision et d'alerte intégrant une modélisation numérique pour prévoir les crues, ou encore l'harmonisation des formats et échanges de données entre les différentes agences concernées. La France soutient au Cambodge le financement du programme d'aménagement du bassin versant de Svaychek en s'appuyant sur des solutions fondées sur la nature, avec une prise en compte particulière des risques d'inondation et de sécheresse, notamment en augmentant le stockage des ressources en eau et la régulation du débit de la rivière. En Indonésie et aux Philippines, la France a soutenu des programmes de renforcement des politiques et capacités nationales de lutte contre les catastrophes naturelles, avec 250 millions d'euros engagés en Indonésie aux côtés d'autres partenaires et déjà 150 millions d'euros aux Philippines. Le partenariat que nous entretenons avec la Mekong River Commission a contribué à développer son réseau régional de stations hydrologiques et météo, avec plus de 70 stations qui ont montré leur utilité lors des récents épisodes d'inondation. En Asie du Sud, mais également dans le Pacifique, la France, avec l'AFD, soutient d'autres programmes allant de la prévention à la préparation aux réponses d'urgence. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Franz. Before I give the floor to Georgia, I would like to remind all distinguished delegates that they have 3 minutes for country statement.
Indonesia.
Apology. Indonesia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Indonesia appreciates the convening of this 9th session of this CDRR and welcomes the focus of agenda item 2 on the expanding risk landscape, including intensifying heat. From our respective, a key starting point is recognizing that there are differing views in defining extreme heat. International practice shows that it is defined relative to local climate and community conditions, with no single global numeric threshold. While temperatures of 35 to 40 degrees Celsius are often used as benchmarks for heat alerts, in parts of Indonesia, such levels are closer to normal daytime conditions. As a tropical archipelagic state near the equator, Indonesia does not experience heat waves in the same way as temperate and subtropical regions, and therefore supports methods that better reflect climatic diversity. Indonesia does not yet have a standalone legal definition of extreme heat. Instead, our meteorology agency regulates extreme weather under BMKG regulation number 9/2022, applying a threshold of 3 degrees Celsius above the local climatological norms and issuing multi-hazard early warnings accordingly. This context-specific approach has helped reduce loss of life, while challenges in addressing heat risk remain. ESCAP analysis shows that 8.6% of Indonesia's health facilities are located in multi-hazard coastal zones, with vulnerability expected to increase when heat is factored in. Some areas have recently recorded daily maximum temperatures up to 37 degrees Celsius in Medan and 37.6 degrees Celsius in Majalengka and Bovendigul, driven in part by the urban heat island effect. To address heat-related risk, Indonesia is integrating heat mitigation and adaptation into its national urban policy, promoting climate and disaster-resilient cities through green infrastructure, nature-based solutions, and climate-informed spatial planning, including the use of innovative geospatial and space-based technology. Guided by our vision of sustainable resilience and the principle of leave no one behind, we are mainstreaming gender and disability considerations, including through collaborations to develop guidelines and training on inclusive disaster risk reduction. In parallel, we established local heat thresholds through studies in Surabaya and Medan while supporting satellite imagery and the disaster charter to reduce heat-related disaster risk in the region. Looking ahead, Indonesia support strengthened regional cooperation under ESCAP to harmonize heat risk assessment methodology, share good practices, and enhance regional climate modeling to better protect those most at risk. I thank you.
Thank you, Indonesia. I call Republic of Korea, followed by Maldives. Republic of Korea, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Republic of Korea is honored to brief this session on our recent heatwave situation and our response efforts. Republic of Korea is facing a rapidly intensifying heatwave crisis driven by climate change. Heat waves are now one of the deadliest natural hazards affecting our country. During the most recent summer season, Republic of Korea experienced prolonged high temperature, consecutive tropical nights, and record-breaking heat events in several regions. These conditions led to increasing heat-related illnesses and posed serious risks to vulnerable populations, including the elderly, outdoor workers, and those living in heat-prone environments. In response to this escalating threat, the government of Republic of Korea has strengthened national heatwave management measures. This includes expanding cooling shelters nationwide, deploying smart shade and cooling infrastructure, and enhancing early warning communication, and integrating local governments into real-time coordination through our National Disaster Management Platform. Despite these efforts, the scale of the challenge continues to grow. Heat waves do not respect borders, and the impacts of our warming climate are shared by all nations. Republic of Korea believes that strong regional cooperation, science-based policy innovation, and the timely exchange of best practices across Asia-Pacific are essential to address this escalating hazard. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Republic of Korea. I now give the floor to Maldives, who will be followed by Mongolia.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege to address this committee's session on a matter of urgent and expanding concern. The evolving disaster risk landscape in Asia and the Pacific, particularly in relation to intensifying heat. For the Maldives, the term expanding risk landscape is an existential reality as the world's lowest lying country with an average elevation of just over 1 meter. We are acutely vulnerable to climate change-induced disasters. More than 80% of our total land area could be submerged by a 1 meter rise in sea level. The impacts are already profound and are escalating across all sectors. Rising sea levels, high swell waves, and coastal erosions are increasing in frequency and intensity, directly damaging critical infrastructure, including housing. Saltwater intrusion contaminates our vital groundwater, reserves and freshwater sources, compounding the issue of water scarcity. Our fisheries, which are essential for food security and livelihoods, are also threatened by rising sea levels, surface temperatures, and ocean acidification. Our tourism sector, the backbone of our economy, faces severe threats from coral bleaching, beach erosion, and infrastructure damage. The menace of intensifying heat is rapidly becoming one of the most severe climate-related threats facing the Asia-Pacific region. For the Maldives, this translates into a severe public health crisis and a significant economic drain. Increased temperatures lead to more hot days and are associated with a greater burden of waterborne diseases, vector-borne diseases, and mental health challenges. This chronic heat stress contributes to a significant total burden on health and society, undermining the capacity of vulnerable communities to build resilience against other concurrent hazards. Recognizing the transboundary nature of these risks, the Maldives has consistently played an active and leading role in regional cooperation. The Maldives is proud to serve as the Secretariat to the Regional Integrated Multi-Hazard Early Warning System for Africa and Asia. This role underscores our commitment to strengthening multi-hazard early warning systems and co-developing science-based information for risk-informed decision-taking. Today, I had the honor of signing an agreement between ESCAP and RIMES to further this essential partnership. We are among the first 30 countries to receive support under UN Secretary General's EW for All initiative. Our national roadmap aims to scale up prior efforts and fortify a people-centric early warning system, which is critical that many heat-related deaths and illness can be prevented with early warning systems. We have prioritized integrated approaches, developing a health national adaptation plan and a green climate smart hospital policy and strategy, and are working to strengthen disaster risk governance through improved coordination and risk data management. The accelerating risks, particularly from intensifying heat, demands urgent and coordinated action. We must systematically incorporate heat-related issues into all national disaster risk reduction strategies and roadmaps, aligning them with regional platforms. We must prioritize regional cooperation to leverage science and technology innovations in hydrometeorological services and early warning. The enormous adaptation investments are required, estimated to be 2 to 4 billion, just for sea level rise and flooding in the Maldives. RIMES decision support system, with support from UK Metwiser IBF program, such as CRISH, and those with heat wave models like SATARK and TNSMART, could be immensely helpful to the Maldives by providing the technical framework for impact-based forecasts and user-tailored advisories to address climate-sensitive public health issues and mitigate the impacts of extreme heat. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, as a small island nation, we stand ready to share our experience, both our challenges and the solutions we co-develop with our regional partners. I urge the committee to prioritize the expanding threat of heat and strengthen the regional mechanisms that underpin our collective resilience. Thank you.
Thank you, Maldives. I now give the floor to Mongolia, and will be followed by Nepal. Mongolia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates. Mongolia, historically less exposed to extreme heat, is now facing emerging and escalating heat risks like many countries across Asia and the Pacific due to climate change. Areas previously considered climatically safe are now transitioning into moderate heat risk zones with serious implications for public health, livelihoods, and national development. We are witnessing more frequent heat waves, droughts, strong wind-driven dust storms, drying rivers, melting of glaciers, snow cover, and permafrost. These hazards threaten pastoral livelihoods, water security, food systems, biodiversity, public health, and socioeconomic resilience. Prolonged heat and drought have also significantly increased the frequency and severity of wildfires in our forests and steppe regions, causing major ecological and socio-economic losses. To address these challenges, Mongolia is strengthening its disaster risk reduction framework. We are improving climate risk assessments, expanding early warning systems, managing drought and pasture lands, restoring ecosystems to reduce dust storms, and implementing measures to protect water resources affected by river drying and glacier melt. Community-based adaptation and scientific data integration remain central to our planning. Our meteorological scientists are developing and testing advanced forecast models to predict storms and extreme winds. It helps us anticipate risks early and take preventive actions before disasters escalate. Furthermore, Mongolia is preparing to host the COP17 to the UN Convention to Combat Desertification in 2026. We emphasize that COP17 should focus on climate change issues related to drought, desertification, land degradation, and pasture management to strengthen regional and international cooperation in addressing these challenges. We look forward to the support and cooperation of all member states in making these events a success. Mr. Chair, as we confront one of the most urgent and rapidly escalating climate challenges of our time, intensifying heat and its compounding impacts on our region, it is a high time for us to act with urgency. Urgent and coordinated efforts grounded in science and inclusive governance are required to build resilience and protect development gains from the intensifying threat of extreme heat. International cooperation and knowledge sharing are crucial to build these systems and reduce climate risks. We stand ready to work with all member states, ESCAP, and other partners to advance collective climate action and safeguard the resilience of our people, ecosystems, and shared future. I thank you.
Thank you, Mongolia. I call Nepal. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair.
By Russian
Excellencies
Federation.
and distinguished delegates. I begin by earnestly thanking to the ESCAP Secretariat for organizing these committee sessions and also for the detailed review of the growing disaster risk in Asia and the Pacific. The Asia Pacific Disaster Report 2025, just launched this morning, clearly explains how extreme heat, climate change, and environmental pressures are creating new and complex disasters across the region. These findings strongly reflect Nepal's own experiences. In the last decade, Nepal has faced several major disasters: the 2015 Gorkha earthquake, the 2021 Melemchi flood, the 2023 Jajarkot earthquake, heavy rainfall in July 2024, September 2024, and October 2025, the glacial lake outburst in Thame village, Solokhumbu district in August 2024, the catastrophic flash flood and the landslide event in Rasuagori, which is nearby Nepal-China border, in July 2025, drought in Madhya province and the Tarai area during July 2025 are some significant disasters to name that caused damages worth of tens of billions. They have taken thousands of lives, damaged infrastructure, caused water shortages, and adversely affected health, agriculture, and livelihood. Despite these challenges, Nepal has made significant efforts to strengthen disaster risk reductions and resilience, guided by 2015 Constitution, the Sendai Framework, 16th Plan, the 2017 Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act, and the National DRR Policy and Strategic Action Plan. Nepal has moved decisively from a response-centric approach to proactive risk reduction. All 753 local governments have now prepared disaster plan and implementing them. Provincial emergency operation centers are active. Risk profiles and hazard maps guide planning, and community-based early warning systems are expanding across major river basins. Looking ahead, Nepal prioritizes to promote early preparedness measures, strengthening multi-hazard early warning system, strengthening community-based risk reduction system, increasing investment in resilient infrastructure, improving risk data and scientific assessment, and securing climate finance for adaptations and local resilience. For that, Nepal calls on development partners and the international community for sustained technical, financial, and technological support. We stand ready to deepen regional cooperation, share mountain-specific knowledge, and contribute actively to global DRR process. Nepal reaffirms its full commitment to implementing its regional and international obligations and to building a safer, more resilient future for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Nepal. I now call Russia Federation and will be followed by United Kingdom. Russia Federation, you have the floor.
Спасибо, уважаемый господин председатель, уважаемые участники конференции. Проблематика уменьшения опасности бедствий особенно важна для Азиатско-Тихоокеанского региона, являющегося наиболее подверженным бедствиям регионом мира. От способности стран эффективно предсказывать опасные природные явления, адаптироваться к ним и противостоять им напрямую зависят перспективы успешного выполнения целей устойчивого развития. Ежегодный экономический ущерб от стихийных бедствий в нашем регионе уже сейчас, по некоторым оценкам, превышает $900 миллиардов США. А с учетом тенденции к росту числа чрезвычайных ситуаций природного характера, есть все основания полагать, что без принятия комплексных мер в сфере уменьшения опасности бедствий эти цифры будут только расти. В особенно сложной ситуации находятся наименее развитые страны и малые островные развивающиеся государства. Этим странам требуются адресные меры поддержки. Отдельно серьезный вызов для региона представляет экстремальная жара. Согласно данным Всемирной метеорологической организации, прошлый год стал самым жарким за всю историю наблюдений. Повышение температуры влечет за собой деградацию экосистем, значительно увеличивает риски возникновения лесных пожаров, приводит к росту нагрузки на инфраструктуру, негативно влияет на здоровье населения и производительность труда. Для эффективного противостояния этому явлению важно способствовать адаптации городской среды путем озеленения городов, создавать прохладные общественные пространства, использовать специальные отражающие материалы в строительстве, модернизировать системы жилищно-коммунального хозяйства и энергетики, чтобы энергосистемы могли эффективно выдерживать пиковые нагрузки, а системы водоснабжения работать в условиях засухи, совершенствовать системы здравоохранения. Вместе с тем хотели бы подчеркнуть, что было бы неверно приоритизировать отдельные виды природных бедствий, например, экстремальную жару. Эффективное противостояние широкому спектру стихийных бедствий, характерных для Азиатско-Тихоокеанского региона, требует применения комплексных, всеобъемлющих мер, включающих укрепление потенциала национальных систем раннего предупреждения и реагирования, повышение адаптации государств к природным катаклизмам, создание устойчивой инфраструктуры, интенсификацию регионального и межрегионального сотрудничества в соответствующих областях. Российская Федерация последовательно поддерживает соответствующие усилия международного сообщества и выступает за наращивание сотрудничества в сфере снижения риска бедствий. В качестве важнейшего инструмента в этом контексте видим Сендайскую рамочную программу по снижению риска бедствий. Видим высокий потенциал применения инновационных технологий в сфере снижения риска бедствий, таких как широкое применение данных дистанционного зондирования Земли, использование искусственного интеллекта и тому подобное. Наша страна традиционно принимает активное участие в развитии сотрудничества в области снижения бедствий как на двухсторонней основе, так и в многостороннем формате. Положительно оцениваем деятельность секретариата ESCAP в сфере уменьшения опасности бедствий. Вносим свой вклад в работу на этом направлении. Так, сейчас из средств российского добровольного взноса в ESCAP реализуется проект технического содействия, посвященный наращиванию потенциала стран Центральной Азии по использованию технологий наблюдения Земли и геопространственных технологий для мониторинга условий ведения сельского хозяйства и влияния засух. В России ведутся активные работы на этом направлении. В частности, особое внимание уделяется усовершенствованию прогностических климатических моделей, подготовке прогностической информации в субсезонном и сезонном масштабе, то есть от 2 недель до 3 месяцев. Одним из практических результатов этой работы стало внедрение в оперативную практику Североевразийского климатического центра передовой климатической модели, разработанной Институтом вычислительной математики Российской академии наук. Важно подчеркнуть, что именно на результатах этой национальной модели, наряду с другими ведущими разработками, основываются так называемые консенсусные сезонные прогнозы, выпускаемые Североевразийским климатическим форумом. Североевразийский климатический форум – это субрегиональная структура под эгидой Всемирной метеорологической организации. Сотрудничество в субрегионе Северной и Центральной Азии дает практические результаты. Североевразийский климатический центр, головную роль в котором играет Гидрометцентр России, на регулярной основе выпускает еженедельные предупреждения о неблагоприятных и опасных явлениях, включая волны жары. Это является важным элементом оперативного реагирования. Мы готовы делиться нашими наработками с партнерами по региону. Уважаемый господин председатель, комплексный характер и широкий спектр опасных природных явлений, с которыми сталкивается наш регион, требует скоординированного ответа и наращивания совместных усилий как профильных национальных служб, так и организаций системы ООН. Убеждены, что активная работа в рамках ESCAP способна внести существенный вклад в решение наиболее насущных задач в сфере уменьшения риска бедствий и значительно укрепить устойчивость стран региона перед лицом любых экстремальных явлений природного характера. Благодарю за внимание.
Thank you, Russia Federation. I now call United Kingdom and will be followed by Sri Lanka. United Kingdom, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Ministers, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, on behalf of the United Kingdom, I'd like to thank ESCAP Secretariat and members for convening this vitally important session on disaster risk reduction in Asia and Pacific. The climate crisis is intensifying across this region, with extreme heat in particular threatening lives, livelihoods and economic stability. And yet the global gap on adaptation planning, investment and implementation needs remains vast. The UK remains committed to climate action. Our international climate finance has helped 110 million people adapt to the effects of climate change, provided 82 million people with improved access to clean energy, and helped to mobilise billions in private investment. We've also modernised our approach to development. The UK will prioritise working in partnership as an investor rather than a donor, drawing on the UK's leading expertise and delivering through strong multilateral and local partners. This is exactly what the UK's flagship Climate Action for a Resilient Asia, or CARA, programme is doing across the Indo-Pacific region. CARA delivers through 7 thematic components and works closely with partners to achieve scale and leverage additional finance. CARA tackles disaster risk reduction through all of its 7 components, including the demand-responsive flexible fund, which is amongst other projects funding a new partnership with India's Tamil Nadu state government, the United Nations Environment Programme and the World Resources Institute to combat extreme heat. It is the Met Office-led Weather and Climate Information Services, or WISER Asia-Pacific components under CARA that is spearheading the work to transform the quality, accessibility and use of co-produced weather and climate information services. Recognising this focus of ESCAP's Committee on Disaster Risk Reduction, we also want to emphasise that WISER is working to enhance resilience to intensifying heat. WISER is supporting technical capacity building of national meteorological agencies. It's providing funding and technical support to regional climate outlook forums in South Asia, SASCOF, and has been in Southeast Asia, ASEANCOF. In doing so, WISER enables better decision-making across all levels of government and across sectors and communities. WISER also supports the South Asia Hydromet Forum, a principal regional mechanism for collaboration on weather and climate services. And we're very pleased to announce that in partnership with the Regional Integrated Multi-Hazard Early Warning Systems for Asia and Africa, RIMES, we are developing a regional framework and toolkit for impact-based forecasting on temperature-related hazards. This is an exciting initiative that will enhance regional capability across South Asia and support national-level demonstration projects. WISER, by design, connects with related initiatives, including the Global Heat Health Information Network and its regional nodes, and has in recent years supported ESCAP, WMO, and partners in supporting regional learning under the UN Early Warnings for All initiative. It also links nationally with programmes such as the UK's Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office Resilience Adaptation in Nepal, or RAIN programme, as an example, which is building community-centred multi-hazard early warning systems. The severity of the climate crisis makes it vital that we forge new collaborations and find ways of working that drive action on the ground, while keeping the needs of affected people at the forefront. It is convenings like these that will collectively move us forward, and the United Kingdom looks forward to advancing our partnership with countries across Asia and the Pacific to protect people and communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, United Kingdom. I now call Sri Lanka and will be followed by China. Sri Lanka, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, distinguished delegates. Let me begin by welcoming and congratulating the Secretariat on the formulation of the Asia-Pacific Disaster Report 2025. The findings of the report, as evident from the presentation made by Mrs. Tiziana Bonapaci, the Director IDD, this morning and at the beginning of this agenda item, highlights the accelerating rise of extreme heat with increasingly frequent, prolonged, and intense heat waves having major implications for the lives and livelihoods of people across Asia and the Pacific. Extreme heat is not a standalone hazard, but a risk multiplier, amplifying impacts on public health, labor productivity, agriculture, water resources, and energy systems, while exacerbating existing vulnerabilities to floods, droughts, and landslides. In this context, Sri Lanka strongly welcomes the 3 initiatives proposed in the report for implementation by ESCAP, clearly drawing on its mandates and leveraging its comparative advantages. First, Sri Lanka welcomes the initiative to scale up climate-resilient and inclusive social protection schemes. ESCAP, informed by its ongoing pilot initiatives, can effectively support the development of regional guidelines, analytical tools, and policy frameworks that embed heat proactive and anticipatory considerations into social protection systems. Sri Lanka also welcomes the second proposal to establish cross-border green cooling corridors, particularly through NIASPEC. Third, Sri Lanka strongly endorses ESCAP's commitment to using innovative space-based solutions to strengthen heat preparedness within early warning systems, leveraging the strengths of its dynamic and effective Regional Space Applications Program, RESAP. RESAP will certainly be an effective platform for sharing of Earth observation data and technical expertise for monitoring, mapping, and forecasting of heat exposure and vulnerability. At the national level, Sri Lanka continues to enhance its climate and hazard information systems, hydrometeorological monitoring, and digital platforms for agriculture and resource management. These efforts will continue to integrate heat risk information. Mr. Chairman, let me conclude reaffirming Sri Lanka's commitment to working with ESCAP and all collaborating partners to advance evidence-based, collaborative, and socially inclusive approaches to addressing rising heat in our region. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Sri Lanka. I now call China and followed by Japan. China, you have the floor.
非常感谢主席，很高兴、很荣幸能够有这次机会参加会议。我呢是来自中国的应急管理部，应急管理部呢是2018年成立的新的部门，主要负责我们国家的防灾减灾工作。所以我也想借这个机会呢，不光光是仅仅介绍这个极端高温的这样的一个我们中国的一些举措，我想借这个机会呢，介绍一下中国防灾减灾的一些重要的一些举措和措施，供大家了解和参考。那么中国呢，是世界上自然灾害最为严重的国家之一，灾害种类多，分布地域广，发生频率高，造成损失重，这个是一个基本的国情。那么第一点呢，我们首先呢是这些年呢是提升综合的防灾减灾救灾能力。比如呢，我们设立了国家层面的防灾减灾救灾委员会，这个委员会呢有45个成员单位组成，主要审议研究重大的这个防灾减灾的政策，编制我们国家的防灾减灾救灾的5年规划，那么应对呢极端天气事件啊。这是一个非常重要的一个协调机构。第二个呢，我们组织实施了这个自然灾害防治的9大工程。这个工程呢，涵盖风险普查、生态修复、监测预警、应急救援多个领域，可以说呢是形成了多维度系统化的，帮助我们形成了一种系统化的这个灾害防治体系。第3点呢，我们是开展了第1次的全国自然灾害的综合风险普查，我们进行了这个致灾要素还有承灾体的这种调查。 那么累计收集的数据呢达到83亿条。我们根据这些数据呢，制定了地震啊、地质灾害、江河防洪、干旱、森林防火等防治的这种灾害防治的区划。那么了解了我们国家的自然灾害风险的水平。同时呢，我们也建立了国家自然灾害综合的这个风险的数据库。那么第4点呢，我们建立了统一的这个灾情的管理体系。中国呢已经构建完成了省市县乡村5级的这样的灾害信息源的体系，总量达到100多万人。那么每一个社区都至少有1名灾害信息源，进行这种灾情的报送，保障他们能够在灾害发生的时候报得准、报得快。同时呢，我们还开发了自然灾害灾情的管理系统，还建立了全国灾害信息源的数据库，对这些信息源呢进行动态的管理。那么在综合的监测预警方面呢，我们建立了联合会商的预警和应急响应联动机制，推动建立风险研判、灾情会商、信息共享等机制，形成了非常高效的这种协作和联动的配合。那么第2点呢，我们也建立了国家层面的自然灾害综合监测预警平台，接入了很多有关部门的涉灾的数据和系统。我们还建立了非常广泛的这个遥感监测的体系，构建了天空地人网一体化的这样的综合的风险监测预警的网络。那么3个小时内降水的预报准确率呢，我们提高了50%以上，主要江河的洪水预报精准度超过90%。第3点呢，我们是注重科技的支撑，注重科技在防灾减灾的应用。比如说，我们加强灾害监测预警技术的研究和研发，装备的研发，利用大数据、人工智能、卫星、无人机，还有这个模型等技术手段呢，提升我们的重大灾害的监测预警能力。那么在灾害处置方面呢，我们是不断的提升我们的综合救援能力。大家都知道，我们中国建立了国家的综合性消防救援队伍，这个队伍呢，在全国是有40多万人。那么每年呢，接警超过200万起，他们是我们应急救援、灾害处置的主力军和国家队。第2点呢，我们还有建立了非常快速的、高效的救灾款物的调拨机制。那么灾害发生后呢，我们可以根据灾情的情况进行初步的判断，第一时间的把这个救灾资金呢拨付给灾区。那么保障呢，受灾的群众有饭吃、有衣服穿、有干净的水、有安全的住处、有医疗的服务。那么同时针对冬季的这种受灾的情况呢，我们还有这个冬季的专门的救助资金，那么确保呢受灾群众温暖过冬。那么第3点呢，我们建立了中央的救灾物资储备保障能力。我们国家的这个中央应急物资储备库呢，实现了31个省区市的全面的覆盖。灾害发生后呢，我们会启动这个应急联动机制，以最快的速度向灾区呢调拨物资。目前呢，就是我们中央的这个救灾物资储备的物资呢，在某一个省内呢是6个小时就可以到达，跨省呢是24小时就可以抵达。以上呢就是我的一个基本情况的一个介绍。谢谢大家。
Thank you, China. I call Japan and will be followed by Iran Islamic Republic of Japan. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Esteemed delegates, Japan welcomes this committee's review of the expanding risk landscape in Asia and the Pacific, particularly the intensifying impacts of extreme heat. Our disaster management white paper highlights that health impacts from heat waves are increasing, with emergency transports due to heat strokes rising year by year. It also further stresses the importance of incorporating heat risk into disaster management plans, especially for vulnerable groups such as the elderly and children. Japan emphasizes the importance of preparedness for multi-hazards and to leave no one behind, and we have a track record of support on this theme across the region over many, many decades, as you know. The points raised in the report generally align with our national initiatives, but we have a few comments. We should note that disasters are highly context-specific. While early warning systems for heat are advancing, thresholds and definitions, etc., differ widely across the region, a point which makes regional comparative analysis difficult and a matter that we should be aware of in our capacity development support. On financing mechanisms, pooled funds are promising, but unless governance and accountability are clear, it may be difficult to execute. These issues need to be acknowledged, coupled with development of incentive mechanisms that orchestrate a wider net of support and incentives for self-help measures in a locally driven manner, including the private sector. Japan's government white papers also remind us that resilience cannot rely on digital innovation alone and that a hybrid approach is important, as we also showcased in a side event 2 years ago at this commission. Our Disaster Management White Paper 2025 cautions that dynamic disaster data cannot always be standardized, creating risks of incomplete or delayed information flows. Our Information Communications White Paper highlights that AI also entails technical and social risks, including bias, ethics, and cybersecurity vulnerabilities, which can be exploited during disasters. These tools are quite valuable, but they must be treated as complements, not substitutes for more grounded measures. Equally important are the analog cross-sector approaches that are less exposed to complex cyber-related risks. Japan policy documents emphasize ensuring backup power and decentralized cooling for hospitals and clinics, expanding distributed energy systems to maintain continuity of critical services, promoting risk-informed farming practices to withstand heat and drought, strengthening integrated water resource management to secure supply during extreme heat events, et cetera, et cetera. Crucially, Japan's National Resilience Plan and Land Infrastructure and Transport White Paper stresses that city planning itself must embed resilience, expanding green spaces, reducing urban heat islands, decentralizing infrastructure, and integrating lifelines into urban design. These measures are tangible, locally implementable, and directly reduce vulnerability. They also build trust with communities since their effectiveness does not depend on complex algorithms or digital platforms that may be misunderstood or disrupted. In conclusion, while concurring with the proposed actions, we think that regional cooperation should strike a balance among the following: strengthening early warning systems for multi-hazards while investing in cross-sector resilience measures that are also robust against misinformation and cyber risks, and prioritizing resilient city planning, embedding cooling, green infrastructure, and decentralized lifelines into urban design. By combining practical low-tech resilience with carefully managed digital innovation, and by embedding disaster risk reduction into the very fabric of our cities, we can build strategies that are both modern and trustworthy, ensuring resilience to extreme heat across Asia and the Pacific. We hope to orchestrate sharing of these lessons learned in 2027 through the Asia-Pacific Urban Forum to be hosted in Yokohama City and at the Sendai Asia-Pacific Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction, where countries will come together to advance resilience and preparedness across Asia and the Pacific. And I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Japan. I call Iran Islamic Republic of, and followed by Georgia. Iran Islamic Republic of, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not going to make a national statement right now, but I want to use my opportunity to raise some points regarding the report delivered by Secretariat under this agenda item. So I hope that these aspects I'm going to raise, the Secretariat taking into consideration to make a more factual report in the future work of the Secretariat. So in this regard, I'm going to refer to Para 6, Para 33, and Para 36. These paragraphs referring to environmental degradation, droughts, desertification, food and water insecurity, and storms, and reinforcing feedback loops, but failed to mention sand and dust storms. Sand and dust storms is indeed a big problem for our region. From the people from Mongolia, to the west countries in the Asia Pacific, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, they are struggling with the severe impacts of SDS or sand and dust storms. In some days, the visibility is just 50 meters. But we didn't see any paragraphs referring to the real and the factual problem of the region. So plus 200 million people in our region are grappling with this problem. But we didn't see even a word about SDS, sand and dust storms in the report. The Islamic Republic of Iran commend the Secretariat for the comprehensive report on the diverse impacts of heat waves, including glaciers, mills, droughts, and other environmental consequences. However, the role of heat waves in exacerbating sand and dust storms has received limited attention. Given the significance of this phenomenon is increasing vulnerability of communities and infrastructures in the region, it would be valuable if future edition of the report could provide further analysis and information on this aspect, thereby offering a more comprehensive understanding of multifaceted impacts of heat waves in our region. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Iran Islamic Republic of. I now call Georgia and will be followed by Bangladesh. Georgia, you have the floor.
Thank you for the opportunity. Distinguished delegates, it's my privilege on behalf of the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Agriculture of Georgia to present the current status and pressing challenges of expanding risk landscape in Georgia, including in relation to intensifying heat and associated natural hazards. Georgia's diverse geography, from western humid subtropical regions to semi-arid eastern plains and high mountain glacial environments, renders the country highly susceptible to multiple natural hazards. Noteworthy that in recent years, accelerated glacier retreat and permafrost degradation intensified the frequency and magnitude of glacier and permafrost-related hazards and cascade-type disasters. In 2023 and 2024, the top 5 warmest years on national record, more than 250 hydrometeorological and over 1,500 geological hazardous events we registered nationwide. Floods, flash floods, landslides, and mud flows had the most severe human impacts. The most tragic example is the 2023 Showy devastating disaster directly linked to glacier and permafrost destabilization, which triggered a cascading rock ice avalanche and debris flow, destroying all the resort infrastructure and resulting in 33 fatalities. In relation to intensified heat, Georgia, especially the southeastern regions, is expected to face increasingly extreme and sustained heat. Historically, days above 30 degrees occurred around 10 times per year, and days above 35 degrees only a few times, while under worst case climate scenarios by the end of the century, these figures may increase to 60 and 20 days nationally and exceed 90 and 50 days in the southeast, with some areas potentially suppressing 41 degrees and with the intense heat season expanding markedly from July, August to nearly April, October. To address these formidable changes, multi-hazard early warning system is being developed in Georgia, encompassing hazard mapping, improvements in forecasting, data collection and analysis, and strengthened institutional capacity. These efforts are supported by international collaboration, particularly with the assistance from the United Nations Development Programme, Green Climate Fund, Swiss and Swedish governments, through a 7-year program dedicated to reducing the risk of climate-driven disasters. In parallel, the government has initiated a series of measures aimed at identifying and assessing periglacial-related risk hotspots. Preventive measures are being explored and implemented in high-risk areas, and partnerships with scientific institutions are being deepened to support decision-making with the latest research and data. Significant progress has also been made in expanding the use of Earth observation and geospatial technologies for drought and crop monitoring. A nationwide operational drought monitoring system has been established alongside an information advisory web platform, so-called Georgia Climate Services for Agriculture, providing tailored information to farmers to pilot the most drought-prone regions. To integrate heat into yearly warning system, the action plan for managing public health risks associated with heat waves for the years 2024-2030 is designed for translating heat warnings into timely public action and enhance national preparedness and response to extreme heat. Despite these efforts, disaster risk management across prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery remains a major challenge. It's essential that the legislative and regulatory frameworks fully account the risks associated with intensifying heat and translate them into evidence-based policies. Georgia therefore underscores the necessity of enhanced regional and international cooperation and sustained support to build a resilient future, where immediate and long-term challenges posed by expanding risk landscape are effectively managed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Georgia. And I'll give the floor to Bangladesh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excellencies and distinguished delegates, Bangladesh is one of the most climate vulnerable countries in the world, exposed to recurring cyclones, floods, storm, heat waves, lightning incidents, and other climate impacts. Over the years, Bangladesh have invested heavily in building a resilient nation through strong institutions, community-based preparedness, and technology innovation. We have developed a comprehensive early warning system which now reaches millions of people at the local level. Bangladesh has also established many cyclone centers network, improved forecasting capacities, and strengthened emergency responses through digital platforms. Mr. Chair, the increasing intensity and frequency of climate hazard demands stronger regional cooperation, especially in the Bay of Bengal region. Shared data, integrated early warning system, interoperable technology, and coordinated response mechanisms are essential to ensure that no community is left behind. We welcome ESCAP's initiative on multi-hazard early warning system, disaster risk finance, resilience, infrastructure, and space-based technology for risk reduction. Bangladesh remains steady to collaborate in these areas, and also we encourage ESCAP to further support capacity building, technology transfer, and investment in resilient development pathways. Mr. Chair, as Bangladesh prepares for its post-LDC development journey, resilience, sustainability, and regional integration will remain at the heart of our national priorities. We believe that a safer, more connected, and more climate-resilient Asia-Pacific region can only be achieved through collective action and shared responsibility. Bangladesh reiterates its unwavering commitment to the implementation of the Agenda 2030 and the ESCAP initiative in future cooperation. We look forward to working closely with all the member states and development partners to build a future where every person is protected by effective early warning systems and supported by resilient development opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, Bangladesh. If there are no more country statements, I will now open the floor to international organizations. And also would like to remind speakers they have 3 minutes. I call Global Heat Health Information Network. You have the floor, followed by IFRC.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, on behalf of the Global Heat Health Information Network, thank you for the opportunity to address the committee. The United Nations has established an urgent tone on extreme heat as a critical global risk, with the Secretary General's call to action on extreme heat in July 2024, expanding efforts from UN agencies and this committee session. In response, the network, UNDRR, and WMO launched the Extreme Heat Risk Governance Framework and Toolkit at COP30, underscoring that heat is a cross-sector governance challenge across timescales. Under Agenda Item 2, projections indicate many countries may face 100 to 300 days with heat index above 35 degrees Celsius each year. Yet tropical regions currently experiencing months of extreme heat have recorded fewer than 10 traditionally defined heat waves over 33 years, showing that conventional heat wave metrics underestimate the true burden of chronic heat exposure. Chronic heat remains under-recognized despite its significant impacts on health, productivity, and well-being, including mental health burden and chronic kidney disease of unknown origin. This growing evidence calls for a broadened impact and understanding and incorporation of chronic heat impacts into risk assessments and policy frameworks, highlighting that early warning systems must be comprehensively coupled with good governance for long-term resilience and risk reduction. We respectfully recommend that the committee and member states define and adopt heat metrics that capture chronic and nighttime exposure and expand early warning systems to support year-round risk communication where needed. B, strengthen health and occupational surveillance for acute and chronic heat impacts, assessing economic consequences of health heat-related productivity loss and system strain. C, prioritize equity for high-risk groups when investing in structural and behavioral risk reduction, including safer indoor and built environments in rapidly urbanizing areas. And D, promote whole-of-governance coordination and cross-cutting sustainable finance for heat risk governance and long-term resilience, including retrofitting climate-resilient infrastructure and institutions. A whole-of-government, all-of-society approach is critical to build resilience against acute and chronic heat, and we urge the committee to explicitly incorporate chronic heat, holistic heat risk governance, and long-term risk reduction into Agenda Item 2. The network's Southeast Asia hub, based at the Heat Resilience and Performance Center, Yongloo Lin School of Medicine, National University of Singapore, alongside forthcoming South Asia and Latin America hubs, stands ready to support member states in coordinated, evidence-based heat resilience efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Global Heat Health Information Network. I now call IFRC. You have the floor.
Honorable Chair, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies and our 52 National Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies across Asia-Pacific region, we welcome the 9th session of the Committee on Disaster Risk Reduction and its focus on extreme heat, resilience through science and innovation, and advancing early warning systems. Extreme heat is one of the deadliest impacts of the climate crisis, contributing to nearly 500,000 deaths globally each year. With climate-related disasters growing in frequency and complexity, we urgently need great investment in preparedness, resilience, aligning climate development and humanitarian finance. The most critical window for saving lives lies between warning and impact. Early warning must trigger early, coordinated action, supported by strong legal frameworks, clear policies, and actionable plans. Through IFRC Climate Resilience Platform, we aim to mobilize 1 billion Swiss francs by 2027 to fund locally led, people-centered climate action in most of the vulnerable communities. We call for increased direct finances to local actors to protect lives and livelihoods. Beyond traditional funding, IFRC is pursuing innovative solutions such as resilience bonds, climate risk insurance, and pre-arranged financing to ensure communities have reliable access to climate finance. We urge collaboration with ministries of finance and relevant bodies to unlock flexible national resources, including contingency funds to shock-responsive social protection systems. Our approach is people-centered, gender-sensitive, and socially inclusive. By empowering communities to lead early warning systems and adaptation initiatives, we address the unique needs of marginalized groups, ensure equitable access to information and resources. We call for urgent climate action around 3 priorities: protect health and well-being by building climate-resilient cities and health systems, invest in people and communities through scaling up locally led climate action, act early by investing in preparedness, early warning, and anticipatory action to get ahead of disasters. Finally, we urge all stakeholders, governments, communities, and technical partners to update regulations, raise awareness, and define clear triggers for early action. Early warning systems must move beyond information sharing to become actionable mechanisms that empower people everywhere to act in time. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, IFRC. Excellency, distinguished delegate, I see no more requests for the floor. I would like to thank you for this informative statement. At this juncture, I will invite delegation to consider the draft decision as contained in the document ESCAP CDR 9/2. The draft decision read as follows. The Committee on Disaster Risk Reduction requests the Secretariat to integrate heat risk reduction into regional strategy for early warning that was recommended for future development at the head session to the capacity building and technical cooperation activity that strengthen the use of geopath data and the digital innovation for regional and sub-regional multi-asset resilience. Will any delegation wish to intervene specifically on the text proposed? Japan, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in the gist of the conference document, which I believe talked about more of a broader set of solutions in the so-called five-point strategy, we think that the draft decision probably should more accurately mirror that, because indeed, as we said in our speech, we think that a systemic, more comprehensive approach is probably warranted in today's multi-hazard situation. So with that, we suggest, oh God, okay. We suggest that to delete after, through capacity building, no, after. So after capacity building and technical cooperation, after that, so it's from activities to digital innovations, we strike that out and say, with a view to enhancing regional and sub-regional multi-hazard resilience, comma, taking into account the need for systemic and multi-sectoral approaches. And I'm taking the language out of the document so that it includes that as well as other things. That's my daughter, sorry. Okay, so deleting activities up to innovations so that we make it more general with a view to enhancing, and then delete for, gosh, my daughter. And then after that, the sentence, after the sentence, taking into account, after the sentence, yeah, comma, taking into account the need for, oh God. Systemic and multi-sectoral approaches. Multi-sectoral approaches. And that includes a lot of things, including what was struck out there, in our opinion. Thank you.
United Kingdom.
Thank you, Chair. Question for the Secretariat. How do these amendments proposed by the distinguished delegate from Japan, how would they impact your plans for capacity building and technical cooperation? Would they encompass what you were already planning for the next 2 years until the next committee, or do they have any impact in how you would otherwise engage in those activities? Thank you.
Any other comments? Timor-Leste.
Thank you, Chair. As we know, climate change cause of disaster affected to economic growth and social problem affected to all resources. Timor-Leste National Strategy Plan will be concentrate to the mitigation and education risk disaster. Early warning system is very important to part of prevention. Education risk disaster is very important to increase the knowledge of the community cause of disaster, signal of disaster, how to prevent and how to recover past disaster. So I propose to UN Secretary, if possible, integrated the education risk disaster in the regional curriculum to increase the knowledge of the student, cause of disaster, signal of disaster, how to prevent and how to recover past disaster. Thank you.
Any other comment? If there are no other comments, I now give the floor to Secretariat for response.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor, and I thank distinguished representatives of Japan, UK, Timor-Leste for the proposed revisions, the question, and the suggestion. Maybe let me start off with the question. So I think the current proposed revisions are basically what we are doing at the moment. It's within our scope of work. It's just a little broader, but it's in line with our approach, in line with the direction we have, in line with the planned and pipeline, planned activities and pipeline projects. Our work would continue as we've been doing over the past few years with the revised amendments. And then in line, with the revised amendments, if there are new suggestions or new areas of interest, for example, education has been mentioned, then this certainly could fit under the overall context of this decision. I think from the Secretariat perspective, it enables us to continue to work on what we have been doing in the past and to take it forward. Thank you.
Japan.
So just, I took the language from the conference document, so we hope that it is within the scope. But if it would, if it would help delegates, we can at the end of the sentence within the scope of ESCAP's mandate. For example, you mentioned education, but of course UNESCO is in that space. So maybe within the scope of ESCAP's mandate may alleviate some concerns.
Secretary.
Thank you. Thank you very much to the distinguished representative of Japan, and thank you for the reminder that the words actually come from our document. My natural reaction was to confirm that it's within our mandate, within our scope of work, and further evidenced by the fact that the words come from our Secretariat note. And certainly, you know, the specific sectors, there are UN specialized agencies, you know, we would need further discussions, further, you know, consideration of the issues, but, you know, it all fits under overall systemic and multilateral approaches. Thank you. Within the scope of ESCAP's mandate, of course. Thank you.
Is the proposed text as amended acceptable to all delegation? Iran.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We welcome the proposal by distinguished delegate of Japan, but with minor addition, taking into account the necessity for or if there is consensus in the room, we can say the urgent, instead of necessity, we can say the urgent need for systematic and multilateral, multi-sectoral approaches. Thank you.
Is the proposed text as amended acceptable to all delegation? China.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. We would like to request that we have further discussions with our ministry before making any further suggestions on this draft decision. So we might give you our inputs later. Is it acceptable? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as soon as possible would be our preference so that we can process, the documents in time. But the revisions that are made on this draft decision, or the revisions that are proposed today, are still decision. It's still a draft decision until the committee meets on Friday afternoon for final adoption of the decisions. So it remains a draft. It remains a draft until Friday, but it would be very helpful to receive the feedback as soon as possible. Thank you.
United States of America.
Thank you, Chair. I'll say the same thing, and I will get back to you as quickly as possible. I'm not sure what the response will be to systemic and multisectoral, but otherwise, fine. Thanks.
India.
The Committee on Disaster Risk Reduction requests the Secretariat to integrate heat risk reduction. I want to include marine including marine heat risk reduction, because that is a thing which is not really focused, and it is very appropriate for the coastal community. Thank you.
Are there any further comments? Thank you, distinguished delegate. Oh, sorry. Iran.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Regarding the new proposal from India, would you, the Secretariat, please explain in details how the marine heat risk reduction reflected in Disaster Risk 2025 report? which just this morning distributed in this committee session. If you kindly provide more details about how this concept, marine heat risk reduction, reflected in the report. Thank you.
Japan.
So just an add-on question is that does this require additional capacity to the Secretariat? We understand that UN80 makes that very difficult. So if that's the case, we request to put within existing resources after the Secretariat. Thank you.
Any other comment?
So that was a text insertion.
If no further comment, I now give the floor to Secretary.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for those additional suggestions and questions to the Secretariat. So in terms of the marine or the ocean heat risk, I think maybe without getting into too many technical details, but I think the key finding of the report is that oceans absorb 91% of excess heat. So very vulnerable environment, a very vulnerable environment for the current global warming and warmer globe for everyone, everywhere, with heat becoming a chronic phenomenon in many parts of the region. So that would be, I think, the key figure. Then in terms of the whether this requires additional resources or an expansion of mandate, absolutely not. This is all part of our multi-hazard early warnings for all approach. We have the risk and resilience portal. We have just developed this coastal risk and resilience tool, which is, all part of a systemic and a multi-sectoral approach. So yes, it's part of our ongoing work. It's work that is embedded in our regular work program. I hope that clarifies. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate, for constructive comments. I see there are no further comments. I would like to request the Secretariat to include the text of this draft decision in the draft report to be considered on Friday during its adoption, pending further feedback to receive over the next day or so. Japan.
Thank you, and I would still like to insert after the Secretariat within existing resources, just to be 100% clear. Thank you. Maybe at the end, within existing resources and the scope of ESCAP's mandate, if that reads better. At the end of the paragraph before mandate, before the scope, within existing resources and.
Is the proposed text as amended acceptable to all delegation? Again, thank you, distinguished delegate, for constructive comment. I see there are no further comment. I will then request the secretary to include this text of this draft decision in the draft report to be considered on Friday during its adoption, pending further feedback to be received over the next day or so. Thank you. This brings us to the end of our proceeding for this afternoon. I will now call on the secretary to make an announcement.
Thank you, Chair, and I think that brings us to the end of our first day of deliberations. So I'd like to thank all the distinguished delegates for a very, I think, productive opening session this morning, a very informative discussion under agenda item 2. Thank you also for your guidance on the directions for further work to continue on these issues. So I'd like also, just before we close for the day, I'd also like to inform everyone that there are a number of side events that are taking place. And during the 3 days of the committee session, and you may find more detailed information about these and other events on the committee website. Should you need some very specific information, please feel free to reach out to me or to any one of our Secretariat staff. We will very gladly support you and provide any further information that may be needed. Okay, so that's it, Chair, I think, from my side.
Thank you, Secretariat. This concludes agenda item 2. We will resume the proceeding at 10 a.m. tomorrow in this room to begin agenda item 3. This meeting is adjourned.